Sometimes the Are You OK conversation is just a knowing glance or a hand on the shoulder or a beer or whatever it might be. Other times it's a more engaged conversation. But, follow that gut feeling and trust yourself and accept that sometimes it might not go to plan. You might not follow the regimented 4 steps of a conversation that we advocate, but at least you've had a crack.
Welcome to the Beers with a Miner podcast, episode number 19. I am Mad Mumzie. For years now, I have been asked the same questions. How does a little thing like you drive those big trucks? You must be rich. Oh, how do I get a job doing that? Not everyone is cut out to be a miner, but why not? What is it really like, and what does it take to thrive and survive in this industry? Tune in each episode as I sit down for a relaxed chat, usually over a few beers, with a fellow miner. Audio blogs are also shared so you don't have to read. Now let's dig in. Get it? Dig? Mining? It cracked me up. A conversation could change a life. In 1995, much-loved Barry Larkin was far from okay. His suicide left family and friends in deep grief and with endless questions. In 2009, his son Gavin Larkin chose to champion just one question to honour his father and to try and protect other families from the pain his endured. Are you okay? While collaborating with Janina Nern on a documentary to raise awareness, the team quickly realised the documentary alone wouldn't be enough. To genuinely change behaviour Australia-wide, a national campaign was needed. And from this realisation, and with Gavin and Janina's expertise and passion, Are You OK was born. Gavin remained a passionate champion of the fact a conversation could change a life, even as cancer ended his in 2011. His and Janina's legacy is ensuring all Australians realise a little question can make a big difference to those people struggling with life. As well as helping you start these conversations, Are You OK are also working with experts in the field to monitor how these conversations impact on Australia's suicide rate. Today I am speaking with Brendan Maher, the current CEO of Are You OK Day. Welcome to the podcast, Brendan.
Thanks very much, Leanne, or would you prefer I called you Mad Mumzie?
Oh, look, you can call me Mad Mumzie, but Mad Mumzie is out of the closet now, so to speak. So I interviewed my mum, that came out this week, and she called me Leanne, the first time on an actual podcast. And I'm proud of who Mad Mumzie is, so whatever feels right for you, Brendan.
No worries at all.
Now, I first heard of Are You OK Day through a hashtag on social media. I'm pretty sure it was last year. I know I made a Canva picture, which is the software that I use to whip up a little picture to share on my websites and stuff. If you don't know Canva, you really need to get into it. My friends, canva.com is free, it's awesome. So I shared it on my Mad Mumzie page and I thought it was a fantastic idea and about getting the conversation going and just asking, are you okay? And here I am today interviewing the CEO. Welcome to the podcast, Brendan. Once again, it's an absolute honour to have you here.
Well, it's really great to be here. I think, at the end of the day, we want to get this message out to to every corner of Australia, and it's these kind of conversations that help us reach, different people. And we know that the resource sector is an area that has lots of challenges for people, working in, kind of fly-out jobs. Even those who aren't working in fly-out jobs. At the moment, there's another lens of uncertainty over the sector, I guess. It's, it's not as vibrant and buoyant as it might have been a few years ago. Everyone's aware of that. And it's these times that the relationships that we have with our workmates, with our family and friends, particularly as they get tough, that kind of help us weather the storm, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right, and especially where I am up here in Queensland in the coal mining industry, there's been a big downturn as we sit here towards the end of August 2016, although this week coal has sparked a little mini revival, which everyone's a bit excited about. You can feel a little bit of a spring in everyone's step, but it does make a lot of challenges for everyone. And it's times like that you really do need your mates, you need your family, and someone to talk to. And campaigns like this are just, it's a really great idea, because holding things in just doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're all wired differently. Some of us are better at, kind of facing adversity than others. Some of us think we're good, and then when we find ourselves in a bit of a tough spot, we realise that, perhaps we weren't as resilient as we maybe thought we were. And I guess, as a movement, RuOk relies on you and I to notice the changes in people that we spend time with, our workmates. We're well positioned in I guess noticing changes in people around us that might give us a bit of a gut feeling that things perhaps aren't quite right, and finding the time and having the courage to reach out and say to that person, look, I've noticed you just haven't been yourself lately. Is everything okay? Can I help?
That's right. It's a great thing, and I guess especially when it comes to blokes. I know with my female friends, and I don't want to generalise too much, but in my, few years, I'm still a spring chicken, but I've met a lot of people in all different sorts of situations, and I seem to find that a lot of times women will open up. We have girlfriends to talk to, and we'll rave on about everything, which is why Mad Mumzie is loving doing a podcast, because I just love to talk. And it's hard when you come across people who don't. Men, especially, I have found I have had a couple of women who don't open up much. One person in my family is quite close to me, my daughter. I'm sure she won't mind me saying it. She doesn't open up much either, and she went through a rough trot, which Beers with a Minor podcast will know, because podcast listeners will know, because we talked about when her partner died in a coal mine. You can hear that at madmumzie.com/beers10, where we talk about when her partner Tony passed away and the struggles that the whole family had. I managed to open up and chat, but she just held it all in. We went through the company. We could go and see a psychiatrist, I think, through the company help, and I got a lot out of it. But she said, "Yeah, I'm not going back," because it's just not her style. Is that what RuOk Day is about? Just, I don't know if I'll use any of that.
That's fine.
That's fine. I'm trying to wrap my head around and I don't want this to be all about me, because sometimes it can be, because like I said, I do like to talk. But I know that I struggled trying to help my daughter by trying to get her to talk about it. And you just can't make some people talk. So is that what you're saying? Just by at least asking the question, you're giving the opportunity for someone to talk?
Absolutely. It's often said that, the worries that keep us up at night aren't as bad once we've shared them with a friend. Mm. And even though someone might not be the talking type, the very fact that they know that there's someone that cares enough to have, kind of reached out and noticed change, is quite often really profound in itself. I mean, the truth is, you're right about blokes. I mean, if I draw, my comparison to working 7 years with Lifeline, as you know, I'm sure you're aware, is a 24-hour telephone crisis service. Lifeline take over 1 million contacts a year now, and certainly when I was with the organisation, 65 to 70% of those contacts were from women. And
really,
it's not women have, yeah, absolutely, and it's not because women have more problems. It's because women are better at seeking help.
Yes.
Putting their hand up when things aren't going well. probably have, sort of safer social circles, more willingness to know that they're going to be heard. And look, in a lot of respects, I don't believe that blokes don't want to talk. I just think sometimes, they might not have, quite the same opportunities to have a yarn. That as guys get older, their social circle sort of can shrink, whereas women are much better at kind of maintaining those social networks than guys are. Like I'm sure many blokes who are listening now can probably think, gee, there's probably 5 or 6 people that I haven't spoken to for a while. It could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years. But they know when they pick up the phone or reconnect with that person that they'll probably pick up just where they left off.
Yeah,
it's not hard to let those relationships sort of wane to a point where 2, 3, 4, 5 years go by, and then it becomes more difficult perhaps to reconnect with people that at one stage of our lives was sort of really important.
That's right. I must admit I've got plenty of friends like that in my life too. My sister and I call them they're special people. They're one of the special ones, because it could be 10 years and that whenever you get back, it's how you were, or if we ever needed each other, they're there. I do have some men friends that it's kind of like, creaking open a door or something. Once you start having a chat, and in a different way, not in a, in their way, I guess, in a way that they can not understand but relate to a little bit more. And I think there's a lot more, especially with all the suicides that we've sadly had in our industries. Especially, it became quite prevalent over in WA with the inquiry into FIFO suicides, etc., and happening out at camp and things. And it seems the conversation seems to be opening up a lot more than it has, and especially with campaigns like yours, that's just helping it a little bit more. But I just wonder, on the ground, if change is being seen. Do you have stories of how conversations have helped that you know of?
Many stories. Many stories. We were really, really privileged in 2014 and 2015 to be part of a national conversation bus tour, where we took a big yellow bus, across Australia, and visited a lot of kind of regional remote communities. Some sort of metro city places as well. So kind of went to Melbourne and Brisbane and other places. But last year, one of the experiences I remember well was in Kalgoorlie. We went to a mine site out there and had an event, and there was a guy by the name of Sean who came and had a yarn to us afterwards, and he said, "Look, I really want to tell my story." And we had a kind of a video camera and sort of a makeshift recording studio in the back of the bus, where
awesome.
we could kind of capture stories, from real people. And like people want to hear from people that they can relate to. And Sean was you wouldn't get more of a stereotypical bloke's bloke. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You could just tell that it was going to be hard for him to tell this, but he wanted to tell his story, and he got to a stage where there was a big change in his working environment, and it wasn't working for him. And he recounts how he was in such a dark place that he'd be in his bedroom with the blinds closed. And he'd talk about, the phone would ring, or there'd be a knock at the door and your stomach would just drop because, there was all this anxiety. And
wow.
he refers to his immediate supervisor, who was a lady that was his immediate boss, who sat him down and said, "Look, I can tell things aren't quite right. What's going on? And, what can we change to make life easier?" And as a result of having that conversation and being really open and honest, this immediate supervisor changed things around for Sean, and he, looked us in the eye and said it was such a profound change for him to actually be heard, and such a subtle and small change. He said, but he's absolutely convinced it's why he's still here walking the planet.
Wow.
And he also said this person wouldn't even know it. It was just, it was a small thing on this person's behalf to actually sit down, give him a chance to be heard, to be understood, and to make a couple of changes that were in within the realms of that person's, ability that sent him back on the straight and narrow, and now he's thriving again. And, we hear many stories like that, and I think we underestimate the power of just taking the time to reach out to someone that we're worried about and to know that there's actually someone who cares. It can really be life-changing. And, we're not always all at that pointy end of life, and RuOk isn't always focused on mental illness. We all have struggles in life. Your relationship breaks down, you're having, issues at work, you run into financial troubles, you become physically unwell. All the things that test us and make life challenging for us are, how we get through those moments in time can be greatly enhanced by the people we've got around us in just, saying, hey, mate, look, I've noticed things, it's not like you not to answer your phone. It's not like you not to come down to the pub and have a beer. What's going on?
And because a lot of times too, we don't know what's going on with people, and especially if we work with them in any workplace, I guess, but especially out in mining. And I've come across this plenty of times over the years, and I guess it's kind of helped form the messages that I'm putting out there. Is just because the dozer driver on the dump's getting cranky and yelling at everyone doesn't mean that it's us. You don't know what's going on in their life. And and that's the sort of thing, if you can tell a big change and you can just say, well, what's up your ass today, mate? Oh, I've got to tell you too, this shows you're allowed to swear if you want to. It's rated explicit in iTunes. Yeah, well, if you're in mining, you got to hear it, or don't bother going because you'll be a bit precious. So, but in the right timing, not as a joining word. But yeah, I noticed that too, and I've noticed a couple of times. Last year, I was going through a bit of a tough time myself, and I was out at work, and I needed someone for a couple of times there. It was after my daughter's partner had died, and I did not want to be in a mine site because he never came out of a mine site. He died in one. He had a heart attack, Brendan, and I didn't want to be there at all. And the first mine, the mine I was at when it actually happened, the team around me were fantastic, they were awesome. But then I left mining for a while, and when I came back, there were certain things that I just couldn't handle, and I didn't know anyone there, and I didn't have the support, and I ended up not being me at all. And that scared me because I'm the positive one. I'm the one that helps everyone else get through shit. And then when it was my turn, I wasn't letting on either. I guess one time I went in, and it came out later, and this one lady said to me, I remember that day. I thought you were just really sick, but I'd basically had a bit of a meltdown in my truck during an emergency, because every time there was an emergency siren going off, it reminded me of when Tony died. And it was probably just a sensor on a machine that said it was on fire. It didn't mean there was a person in trouble every time this emergency siren went off. But I found myself curled up on the deck of my truck and in a, what do you call it? Fetal position. What the hell am I, well, what the fuck am I doing here? I'll say that right now. But I got through it eventually.
You did, and, you're probably sharing an experience that, that people can relate to, and you probably got completely ambushed by something that you didn't expect.
Exactly.
And that's the truth. It can, life can creep up on you. When you talk to people that and I've come across plenty of people that you would think, heavy set, tattooed, beer drinking blokes who will open up and say, hey, you know what, I went through a really, really tough time, and, I actually can't believe I'm here today, but, I'm here because of my mates, or because of my wife, or because of my kids. Someone cared enough to, kind of say, sit me down and say, what's going on?
Or like Sean, sorry to interrupt there, but like Sean, it was because of his supervisor.
Exactly right, who took, had her blinkers off and cared enough to, kind of sit down and spend, 15 or 20 minutes with someone to try and understand what was going on. You said it before, Leanne, if you look around, many of us are fighting battles that others don't know about. So, when, as you said, if one of the other drivers or crane driver or someone's cranky, you might think, oh, geez, what's up? What's going on with them?
Yeah.
And
Nearly.
Nearly. And, who knows? Who knows what's going on in their life? It's easy to try and look at the life, look at things through your lens. If someone's, not coping with, with things that are, that you might, think, God, I wish I only had what that person's got on their plate. They've got it easy. That could just be the iceberg. It could be a miracle and the most courageous thing in the world that person's actually got up and managed to drag themselves into into the workplace, because sometimes you don't know why it is that you can't get up in the morning, and sometimes there's things going on that you actually can't get through yourself, and there's a lot of things that you can't get through with your friends and family. A lot of conversations are too big for you and I, so that's why RuOk is really about kind of 4 steps. The first thing is to notice that something's not quite right, and to follow your gut feeling that says, something's not quite right, and have a bit of courage and find, an appropriate time to have a yarn to that person, like go for a coffee or a beer, or find some time where you're going to be able to sit down with them and, spend the time with them to have a chat. And then you ask, to make that observation, look, I'm just worried about you because, you're just not yourself. And these are the reasons, because those proof points are important, because it makes it more difficult for that person to deny that something's, actually going wrong. And, if they do deny it, that's fine. Maybe it's too difficult for them to talk about. Maybe it's far too personal. Maybe they don't trust you. There could be a range of things. So if they deny it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because maybe later on that night they'll go home and think, I was doing such a good job keeping this under wraps, or at least I thought I was.
Yeah.
But they're onto me.
They're onto me. Look out.
Yep. And then it's about, asking that question, look, are you okay? Is everything going all right? Talk to me. What's happening? And then it's about listening and not, we all tend to be problem solvers and we want to jump in and try and solve someone's problem. And really, at the end of the day, it's about just listening and letting that person get what they want to get off their chest. And then it's about encouraging action. So have you thought about going to see your doc? Have you thought about accessing the EAP or whatever supports the company's got, if it's a workmate? Is there anyone else you can talk to about this? Give that person a chance to try and think about, some things that they can do to start getting things back on track. And then finally, it's about following up with that person, in a week, a few days later, and saying, look, how'd you go? Did you get to the doctor? I don't need to know the gory details. Yeah, I did. I got to the doctor, and you know what? It was this, and I'm feeling so much better. And all of a sudden, you've been involved in helping someone, perhaps sort of get things back on track, and it feels good. It feels really, really good, and who knows where that problem could have gone without your intervention, and the fact that you've taken the time to say to that person, look, I'm worried about you. I care about you. What's happening? And, you don't have to get into touchy-feely stuff. All you've got to do is just suss them out and see what's going on and let them know that you care. If worst case scenario they get pissed off and they tell you to mind your own business, it's not a fail. It's not. In time they will appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to reach out and say, everything going all right.
And you also might find that they weren't ready to talk to you today. They might have been taken aback a little bit, but they might process it overnight or in a week or next break, and then next time you have a chat, they might be ready for you to ask again, or they might be ready for them to open up about what it is.
Exactly, Leanne. Just say to them, look, I'm always around if you want to chat.
Yep.
Give me a shout. I'm here.
Yeah. And following up too, I think that's a really good step, not just having that one conversation, showing again that you've listened and you care, and then following up and saying, how did you go? How did you go, mate? Like, they're not big, massive sit-down guts on the tables to start with. That's what we used to call it in our house when I was growing up. Right, guts on the table. We had a blended family and teenagers, and it was a bit wild at times. So it was, my dad used to call it Friday night, guts on the table, sort this shit out. But it doesn't have to be that. It might end up like that, but it can start off, like you said, I've noticed you're not yourself. Are you okay? Anything I can do? And then ask again.
Exactly. And Leanne, it's also about looking after yourself as someone who's decided to support someone else. Like you could get some really tough, you could get a really tough answer about what's going on, and it could be something that you totally didn't anticipate, and you literally don't know how to respond. And that's a time where you sort of say, look, mate, this is. It sounds like you're having a really tough time, and I don't have, I think you really need to talk to someone else about this. This is kind of, this is too big for for me to really help you with. But let me tell you, I've used the EAP that we've got, and it was great. So share an experience about perhaps, a moment that you kind of got through. It's not about who's got the biggest horror story. So, saying things like, saying things like, oh, yeah, look, I know how you're feeling, or, look on the bright side, or things like that probably aren't constructive. We've probably all said those things.
Yeah. Oh, that's nothing. I had this, that, and the other, yeah.
All that does is kind of, I guess sort of say, their problem isn't as big as it is. What could be water off a duck's back for you could be a major crisis for someone else.
Yeah.
When you say to someone, look, don't sweat the small stuff, or I don't understand why you're so worried about that. In my eyes, that might look like a small problem, but in their eyes, it could be massive for reasons that we don't know about.
Yeah. I felt that with me and the emergency siren. It's just an emergency siren. There was one guy there who was my mate, and when he realised how much I was struggling, he started doing things when we were parked up for another emergency. Once he realised just why I was struggling with it, he'd send me a message on the truck computer system. We can send each other messages. And he'd send me a message and say, "Hey, girlfriend, you all right?" And he'd go, it'll just be a stupid machine. And I go, yeah. And the other thing he said that really helped, and I just felt like such an idiot when he said this, in a good way, I guess, but he said to me, you can turn the siren down because it comes across two-way. And I said, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Like, you can't turn it all the way down because it just wouldn't let you. But I still had it really like it was loud. It was going off in my head, and the more I heard it, the worse I got, and I built myself up into this state. And him saying that, and then him messaging me during an emergency, and then him saying it's probably just a stupid sensor on a machine that says it's on fire. Every time there's an emergency, it doesn't mean that someone like Tony is in trouble. And they were three things he said to me, and I'm like, yeah, and one time we had 2 emergencies between first and second crib. You know, that's in a couple of hours, and they happen out there, and they have to. You have to treat things as if it's on fire, even if it's not, because you know it actually might be. So, but they were three things he said to me, and they got me through it, and I'm fine now with emergency sirens. I kind of laugh in its face.
How hard was it for your colleague, you know, for your workmate to do that? It wasn't really. It just it was just, you know, someone who was in tune with, who kind of understood what you were, where you're at.
Yep.
And thought, you know what, how hard is it to send someone a text message and say, look, I realise you had a really tough day today. Hope everything's all right. We all know we can put ourselves in a scenario where we get something, you know, from someone that sort of just shows that they, you know, give a crap about us, and it's a really good, simple thing. And, you know, it does take a little bit of getting out of our own heads sometimes, and, you know, as I said before, taking the blinkers off a little bit, you know, keeping a little bit of perspective when sometimes there might not be a lot of perspective. And I should say, you know, like you know, in some of the work we've been doing over in the West with, you know, with our new campaign for it's called Are You OK at Field, which focuses on FIFO. You know, really getting a sense of, you know, some of the challenges that are going on out there, and you know, that extra layer of, you know, kind of uncertainty that you know, really manifests in a range of different things that you don't expect. You know, little things can be much bigger things. You know, not knowing, you know, kind of what's happening. You know, getting concerned about, you know, what, looking over your shoulder, I guess, was one of the guys described to me. Everyone's walking on eggshells, and everyone's looking over their shoulder, waiting for the white envelope.
Yeah.
And you know, that's really tough. It's really tough, particularly, you know, when you know, things like finances and all that kind of stuff have a, you know, repercussion effect on relationships and all that. But you know, this is why the support of each other is, you know, kind of comes into its own, in respect of you know, kind of asking the question, I guess, and looking out for one another. It's not the panacea though, Leanne. Like it's one small component. It's not gonna solve all of the problems and challenges. But you know, I guess it's one little thing that we, you know, one little ray of light that we can do in really challenging times. You know, things will get better. They will. Anyone who's been in a situation of, you know, sort of economic sort of uncertainty, or many people we talk about the good times and the bad times, and, you know, it's the strength of our relationships that get us through the tough times.
Absolutely. And that goes with your family, your friends, your workmates. It goes with everything. I've been definitely walked on eggshells out at work, and you're just waiting, instead of them being out there looking at what we're doing, they're trying to catch you doing something wrong all the time. And just that in itself, it sends a shudder through, and then you know the list is coming of who's going, because they're having a big downsizing, and the big thing that I find is everyone's mind's off the job, you know, and it is life and death what we do in mining. The big shit out there is, a lot can go wrong, and it does. And like you say, it's not only the mental health issues. There's so many other factors that come into our lives, and a big thing that I've been talking about lately in the last few episodes is about how we can start trying to notice within ourselves what we do when little things go wrong. See if I can explain this. So your footy team loses, and they were robbed by the umpire, and you know, you should have won that game, and it might have been the grand final or it might not have, for instance. But you get through that eventually. You get over it, right? And how did you get over it? You know, do you end up going out and going fishing, or do you go for a walk, or And that's what I'm starting to try and ask people to start noticing what you do that gets you through, let's call them the grey times, so that when you hit a dark time, you know that you've got things in your toolkit, if you like, to help you bounce back out of that hole. And because I've been in a couple in the last couple of years, which, I haven't been used to, and I have got frustrated because I've got every bloody tool in the kit, and that's when you get cranky. Well, with me, I shouldn't be like this, but okay, I didn't have that tool, I needed that one. But in saying that, I'll ask you this now. I've got this written down to ask you. I ask most of my guests on the podcast, what do you do, Brendan, personally, that is in your toolkit? Like, what do you do to help you through when life turns to crap? What's your happy place from a personal level?
Look, it's a really good question. I think I get a lot of comfort and solace with family. I'm very focused on family and my relationships. My friends, my wife. I have 3 stepkids. I think that having I guess some people might kind of choose to kind of withdraw and spend time on their own and all that kind of stuff, and that's a very good strategy for some people. I tend to get busy, and I try and as best as I can articulate certain things that creep up on me. To give you an example, in this role, you do get exposed to. You hear a lot of really tough content, I suppose, at times. Tough stories. Of people that have been in really challenging situations and perhaps had suicide attempts and other things. And if you don't find a way to sort of unburden yourself from that stuff and talk to someone about it, it can really creep up on you. So we've got an EAP, kind of a private firm that provides psychology sessions and stuff like that. Just ducking in there every now and again and just sort of getting some of this stuff off your chest is a really good way to look after yourself. Going for keeping active. I'm almost 40 and I still play rugby union. I'm an idiot because
because you play rugby union.
Well,
Sorry, I'm an AFL rugby league kind of gal.
Any sort of full contact sport at 40 is pretty.
Yeah.
You're opening yourself up to injury, and but you know what? I love it, and my wife will sort of say to me, I had 4 games this year, and not because I didn't want to have 15, but because I got injured basically in every game that I had.
And it took you 4 weeks to get over each one.
Oh, totally. I mean, grade three calf tear for. I tell people for pushing too hard in the scrum, but warm up properly. That kind of stuff, and what I get out of sport is the social connections, and I've got some of the best friends that I'll ever have, and lifelong friends through playing rugby, and I've seen how that group of people rally around people when times get tough. We've had guys in our club who have who have got sort of terminal illnesses and have sort of passed away. 2 people I know I can think of immediately, and we've had kind of major fundraisers that have more or less paid off mortgages to sort families out. And I look at that and I think what an amazing kind of network. And what an amazing community! And community is such a big part of kind of my life. And that that extends into work. We're a tiny team at RuOk. There's 6 of us.
Yeah.
But we care about each other. Writing things down is a big thing for me. So like if I'm being like getting a good night's sleep is really important. And if I've got something on my mind, that's keeping me up, I generally tend to try and put it down on paper or something. Sort of putting them out of your head and either into your little notes section of your iPhone or onto I'd say I keep a pad and paper. I don't. Putting a few things, parking them and physically doing that kind of really helps me.
Yeah, get it out of your head.
Gets it out of your head.
Yeah.
Because we can toss and turn all night over things that we know we've got to do tomorrow.
Mm.
And just finding time for the important things. Work's not everything. It's a big part of our lives. Like, that's the truth. But it's not everything.
Yeah. So how did you, Brendan, become involved with Are You OK Day? Or Are You OK? I keep saying Are You OK Day because that's what I know about. But Are You OK is the organisation. Is that right? And then the day is one of the events that you have.
That's right. So, Are You OK Day is our grand final, if you like. So it's kind of the end of a process and then the start of a process. So we've got a lot of, complementary campaigns like Are You OK at field, Are You OK at work, Are You OK at school, and a range of other things that we just really try to keep the conversation going all year round. So I was working at Lifeline for 3 years. For 7 years.
Yeah.
After being in kind of branding and advertising and stuff like that, I was a bit of a square peg in a round hole in that sort of industry. And
why?
I worked with. It just wasn't really. I was pretty good at it, but it just wasn't really. I wasn't finding it really fulfilling, and I didn't really fit the advertising stereotype. I don't think, of ushy suits and all that kind of stuff.
Kind of a tracky dacks kind of rugby jersey kind of guy.
Wore some jeans and jeans and polos rather than suits and that kind of stuff. So I was in that space for about 10 years, and then I worked with Lifeline Australia on a project of kind of rebranding them and repositioning them. And that took about 12 months. And at the end of it, the CEO at the time, a magnificent lady by the name of Dawn O'Neill, sort of said to me, look, we're sort of reorganising Lifeline, and we've got an opportunity to set up a helpline. It was actually around cannabis information, actually, and totally had nothing to do with what I ever knew about, but it was a foot in the door. And so I stepped in the community sector and I set up a helpline for cannabis information with some funding from the federal government.
Yep.
And that was about a 3-month project, and that evolved into a range of other roles around sort of fundraising. And then when I finished there after 7 years, I was in a general manager role as part of the sort of national leadership team around kind of fundraising and partnerships and government relations and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it sort of was with the organisation through a pretty major change. And then I was made redundant.
From Lifeline?
Yeah, from Lifeline after a restructure, and kind of found myself in a position where I had to kind of rethink what I wanted to do. Took a few months off. Well, obviously, it was a few forced months, and I went and did Kokoda, and kind of did some really good things. It was.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt there. Did you just say you did Kokoda?
I did.
As in the Kokoda track?
The track. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Oh, it was amazing. One of the best things I've ever done. It was a profoundly incredible experience, and just makes in terms of getting perspective on, I guess, what the guys went through, what the guys and girls went through up there, it was one of the best things I've ever done, and I'd encourage anyone to do it. It just gives you, I guess, makes you feel so grateful for kind of what we've got, and, to think that, I had 3 square meals a day, I had walking, kind of sticks, boots, packs, porters, all that kind of stuff, and spent most of it on my ass because it was so slippery. And those guys with, did it with, dysentery and fired upon from left, right and centre and losing their mates and all that. It just gave me a new sort of perspective on things. And, it was a really amazing thing to do. Then, kind of set about trying to find the next move. And to be honest, lost a bit of confidence in myself over a couple of months about, applied for quite a few jobs and didn't progress. And then this opportunity came up at RuOk and I threw my hat in the ring and sort of stepped in there about 3.5 years ago. And I live in Canberra, and the organisation is based in Sydney, so I actually go up to Sydney for half the week every week. So I suppose I'm kind of like, your listeners will probably roll their eyes, but I'm kind of like a FIFO.
Oh, yeah, not even. I've been on that plane flight. You don't even get time for a cup of tea.
No, that's true. I guess in some ways, for 3.5 years, I've been trying to squeeze my life into kind of half a week every week in Canberra. Even though it's only a couple of days, there's a bit of peripheral travel around as well. And I think I kind of certainly in talking to quite often to people working in the in the mining industry, I think I can kind of partly understand what that life of being on and off planes and away from home's like. Maybe not as concentrated because there's kind of bigger shifts and swings in the sector, but it's you get home and you kind of feel that your focus should be on home, and then perhaps you're not catching up with your mates as much as you'd like to, and all those things.
That's right.
Because I've got a job I love, and you can't have it all. I don't think. I think you've got to make sacrifices, and certainly there's a lot of sacrifices made in the mining sector, and it's hard being away from your family and your support networks and all that kind of stuff. It really can be. Yeah.
I've just got a question that's just flying into my head that I need to ask. Did you go on the big yellow bus tour? Did you go on the bus and actually go across the Nullarbor and everything? Or did the yellow bus started in Perth and you flew there?
So the yellow bus started in Perth. But came back across the Nullarbor. I didn't go for the whole trip. Because we're such a small team, and it was right in the middle of our sort of biggest campaign period. We had to have some people back on the ground just to deal with all of the community engagement stuff that happened. But I did spend about 10 days on the bus from South Australia through to Victoria, Tasmania, and then back up through to sort of where we finished in Sydney. And it was a really really incredible experience.
Oh, I bet you would have met heaps of different people. And did you find that a lot of people wanted, like Sean, I think you talked about earlier, wanted to come on the bus and share their story? Or what else did the bus do other than that?
Well, we would set up an event as we were invited to set up an event. So, to give an example, we went to Ulverstone near Launceston in Tasmania.
How do you spell that?
Ulverstone.
Ulverstone. Okay. Yeah, in Tassie.
So we went to Ulverstone, and we went to there's a men's shed there.
Oh, they're awesome men's sheds.
Unbelievable. And they had, I think every one of their members was there, and we ended up interviewing about three or four guys there. But one of the things that I remember was that there was a guy there. I think he was originally from Germany, and he was actually building his own coffin in the workshop.
No shit. Was he old?
He was old. He grabbed the bite and showing me the plans for this, and everyone was helping him, and they all thought it was hilarious. And another guy I spoke to, I had a yarn to him. I said, "How are you going?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going too bad." He said, "Look, I've had a pretty tough time." He said, "I recently lost my wife, and I also lost my son, who was a police officer about 15 years ago in a motorbike accident." Anyway, he started. I saw that he was quite teary, and I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, mate, it must be really hard for you to talk about. And he looks at me and he goes, no. He said, I'm good with it now. He said, I've just got glaucoma, which makes my eyes water.
Yeah.
So, they were just an amazing bunch of guys, and they, it was just a really, really good. There was just many, many more stories like that we kind of came across, on that tour, and we caught a lot of it on film, and many of those stories are on our. If you were to go to our website, ruok.org.au, and then go to our YouTube channel, you can see a lot of that content.
And I went there earlier, and it's actually RuOk, as in the letter R, the letter U, the letter O, the letter K. .org.au. Yeah, so
yep.
not spelt out. It's short.
That's right. And look, everything that we've, I've talked about how to have a conversation and stuff like that today. We've got really, really good resources on the site. And there's no harm. It'll take you 5 minutes to jump on there and have a look at, how do I approach someone I'm worried about? What are some good ways to start a conversation? How do I encourage action? What are some good listening techniques? So, no harm in jumping on there and giving yourself a bit of a refresher course if you want to, if you're worried about someone, you want to reach out to them. That's
right. I had a look too. It's a really good website, and I'll add a link to it, and that will be in the show notes at madmumzie.com/beers19. That's the number 19. So, Brendan, RuOk Day is coming up shortly. If all goes to plan, this podcast will be out prior to your grand final day, the RuOk Day. I believe it's September 8th. Have I got that correct?
That's right. Yep.
September 8th. This is 2016 for those listening in the future. And do you have a certain day every year? Did I see the second Thursday of September every year?
That's exactly right.
Yep. Okay.
So,
yeah. And I thought it was more a mining thing, but it's not, is it? Because it's just Australians anywhere. RuOk Day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've workplaces of all descriptions, office-based, we've got schools, community groups, there's probably thousands of community groups, workplaces getting involved this year based on the conversations we've had and the outreach or in-reach that we've had from people wanting to get involved. So, look, I would just say you don't have to wait around to, for HR or management to say we're going to do something, to recognise RuOk Day. Like, it's the most successful when someone champions it from within. So, it's best. You don't have to wait for your HR manager or your boss to decide you're going to do something to get involved in RuOk Day. Look, it's a national day of action. It's time. It's an opportunity to think about how some changes you can make, I guess, in terms of reaching out to those that you might be worried about. Like, how often do we, in hindsight, think, perhaps I wish I had had that conversation with someone, or what is it that I could do to help someone that I'm concerned about. This is really about empowering and giving people some skills and momentum to reach out to someone they're worried about 365 days of the year. So
that's
I'd say to people, if you're going to get involved, try and do it in a way that's authentic. Maybe be prepared to share a story with someone, or reach out to someone that you don't really know, perhaps in the workplace, and have a conversation with them and try and build a bit of a relationship. Focus a little bit more on some of the relationships in your workplace and take a personal interest in people, because it's those people that will help you. That will potentially be there for you when times get tough.
That's right. So on social media and on the website, it's all very yellow, I noticed. And I see lots of people in those RuOk yellow T-shirts. So is that part of getting involved? If you register to get involved, what is it that actually normally happens? As I say, really, to be honest, all I've noticed in my world has been huge things on social media. But what can we do in person in the community other than just chatting to our workmates? Do they have organised events, or what goes on?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things you can do in your workplace to, to kind of recognise and acknowledge the event. I guess RuOk's days like kind of drawing a line in the sand and saying that, look, we want to work towards building a culture of, stronger peer-to-peer support. And it's more about how that kind of evolves, beyond the day itself. So, for instance, the aim of actually organising an RuOk event is to build up a sense of camaraderie and rapport between people involved. So it's, so that you get to know each other a bit better. We know that some of the best conversations are the ones which take place between people who trust and know one another each other. So you could do it by, hosting a sausage sizzle or a breakfast or a morning tea, or create a conversation corner in a workplace by flagging certain areas with yellow and black speech bubbles, or give staff, if you're the boss, give staff a few minutes off to call their grandparents, or a family member who's interstate. Think about who you can reconnect with. There's some great resources that if you're having a toolbox toolkit, for instance, a toolbox talk or a safety talk within a mine site environment. There's a presentation that someone could volunteer to give about how to have a tough conversation. I think at the end of the day, if you can get through RuOk Day and not just have had balloons and cupcakes and think, that was nice, and actually be a little bit more empowered to think, what am I going to do from here to be a better workmate, then, we've probably done something meaningful. It's not about rattling tins and raising money. If you want to do that, that's fine, but it's actually more about what you do to kind of embrace the message, and then what happens beyond the day, to sort of, reinforce the power that a conversation has in helping you help a workmate through those difficult times.
So the biggest message that comes from you explaining all of that to me is that, it's not just about the balloons and the yellow. It's about that a conversation could change a life by asking if someone is okay, and just starting to take the blinkers off and getting everyone to start to be a little bit more aware, to think about it for yourself from within. Are you okay? Maybe not. Maybe you need a hand. Or seeing those around you, and it might not just be at work. It might be your neighbour, and like you say, it could be anywhere. But of course, we Biz with a Miner podcast, we're focusing on mining lifestyle, but more and more the people I'm talking to, it's just about life in general. And I think that what you're doing is just freaking awesome.
Well, thanks, Mad Mumzie. It's it's really great to have had a yummy. It was the first time I've ever had a podcast where I've been encouraged to sit here and have a beer as well, and I've really enjoyed that.
So spread the word. I told you, it's not the ABC.
And this is what it's all about. It's all about conversations, and the more that we can start talking about this kind of stuff. And we've got these double beer coasters that we distribute as part of the Fly In Fly Out campaign, because we don't want to be a purist mental health charity that pretends that conversations don't happen over beers. We're prepared to put our message wherever it's going to be heard. Really, find an environment, and I'm not saying that everyone should go out and get blind and try and solve the world's problems, but the truth is that conversations do happen over a beer, and
that's right.
Let's try and find those moments and try and make them a little bit more meaningful. And if you find it hard as a bloke to sit across the table from someone and have a conversation because you're worried about them, pick up a pool cue or play a game of pool or sort of do something and kind of let it happen. But just do it. If you've got a gut feel that says something's not quite right, follow that gut feel. Sometimes the RuOk conversation's just a knowing glance or a hand on the shoulder or a beer or whatever it might be. Other times it's a more engaged conversation. But, follow that gut feeling and trust yourself, and accept that sometimes it might not go to plan. It might not follow the regimented 4 steps of a conversation that we advocate, but at least you've had a crack.
Exactly. And if you do feel out of your depth, suggest that they find help with people that know a bit more about whatever it is that they're struggling with.
Exactly, and if you hear the story, if you hear the response, which is common, I've tried that before, it didn't work. We've got to understand that. If you're seeking professional help, sometimes you just don't get the right fit with someone. It might not work, but if you keep trying, and you find someone, and you find a process or a therapy or whatever that might be that works, you change your life.
It's like when you're learning a skill and you can have 10 trainers, or not 10 maybe, 2 trainers or 1 trainer trying to tell you. I struggled learning how to drive a truck back in the day, back in freezing cold New South Wales. And I just didn't get what they were on about. But then I had 1 trainer, and however they put it, it all clicked. And I was fine, and it can be like that, It might just be, you might just be that one person or you might be the one that gets them thinking, that then they talk to someone else that helps them. So like you say, we've got to have a crack. I love that. That's awesome.
Totally. Life's about insights, isn't it? We can all remember that. Well, if you think about those things that have been said to us by people that matter in the course of our lives, that have been profound, and they've had a big impact on us. Those opportunities are there every day. We could have an interaction with someone that just changes the way that we think about something, and all of a sudden we've got a different perspective on things, and we move on. And
it can turn your life around, and it can turn someone else, and it really can. It really can. Mad Mumzie getting deep now, but it can turn your life around. One conversation. Are you okay?
Trying deeper into podcasts.
Yeah. So you said this, but you said this is the first podcast that you've been on where you're encouraged to have a beer. So is it the only podcast interview you've done?
This is the first podcast interview I've ever done.
Oh my God, I was hoping you'd say that.
I've done lots of interviews.
Yes.
Media interviews and all that kind of stuff. It's the first time I've ever done a podcast interview.
Right. Did you know what a podcast was?
Yeah? I listen to podcasts.
You do? Well, make sure you sign up and subscribe to Beers with a Minor podcasts on your favourite app, which you'll hear at the end when I close out. Brendan, in closing, is there anything else that you would like to share with us that we perhaps haven't covered?
I think we've covered a lot, and I would just reiterate we've got an amazing website with lots of great content and really good tips on how to have a conversation with someone you're worried about. So if you're in any doubt, visit ruok.org.au, and I'm sure you'll hopefully find some really good tips and guidance on how to reach out to someone if you are worried about them.
I totally agree. It's a really good website, and whoever's doing it for you, buy them a beer because they're doing a good job. Now, I said in closing, but this is the second time only this has happened in my total of whole 19 episodes. My first question is at the end, because we got yakking pretty quick and got right into it. So I'm still going to ask you. You don't get away with it. As this podcast is called the Beers with a Minor podcast, I like to start, or sometimes finish, these happy hour episodes with my guests sharing their favourite beverage and also their favourite time to enjoy it. It could be a beer, wine, spirit, or perhaps even a cup of tea. What is yours, Brendan?
My favourite beer is a pale ale. I don't have a specific brand, but I love pale ale, and one of my favourites is Cooper's Green, a South Australian beer. But I like all beers, so except for light. I don't like light beer.
Why? Because it tastes like water?
Pretty much.
Me too.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mind mid-strength. because I think mid-strength's a very sensible beer to drink.
You can have a nice mid-strength beer with your lunch.
Correct.
You know, and you're fine. And I do believe, I'll have to check the archives, but I think you might actually be the first person who is a beer drinker as their favourite beverage. Everyone else has been wine.
Oh, no, I'm definitely a beer drinker.
Oh,
no question about it.
Do you ever drink wine?
Yes.
When?
I like red wine. I don't drink a lot of it, though.
I'm a beer drinker who at times pretends to be a wine connoisseur, but if you listen to my interview with my mum, you'll find out that I'm failing at that pretty bad. Yeah, I like to have a wine when I'm eating tea. That's about it, and then I'm back to my beer. So I think that we might wrap up there.
No worries.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brendan, for coming on the Beers with a Miner podcast. And now that I know you're a podcast listener, I expect to see a rating and review on iTunes.
Righto. I got what you noted out of that, Leanne. I hope it was useful and insightful.
Absolutely. It was brilliant. It was great. It's time to say goodbye now. We could chat all day, and I have been known to. But what is the best place that people can get in touch with you?
The best place to go is our website, which is ruok.org.au, and to contact us through the Contact Us link on the site, or they can email us at hello, HELLO, @ruok.org.au.
And you have a Facebook page?
And we do have a Facebook page, and it is /RuOk Day. The Facebook page is RuOk Day, and we've got a massive social media community, and there's some really great content that we post on there every day, and it's a really good way to keep in touch with kind of what we're doing.
It's fantastic, and there's a really great community vibe in there as well, people helping out, and that's great to see. So keep doing what you're doing, Brendan, and it's been fantastic to chat to you. I've really enjoyed this, and I'll let you know when this is live and you can have a listen yourself.
Thanks, Leanne.
All the links we discussed in this episode are at madmumzie.com/beers19. That's madmumzie with a Z or a Z, depending where you're from, and the number 19. I would love you to please leave a rating and review on iTunes so more people can hear about the Beers with a Miner podcast. Head to madmumzie.com/iTunes to find the subscribe link, and please share with your mates. Not an iTunes fan? That's okay. Just search for Beers with a Miner in your favourite podcast app. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week, stay safe, be real, be special, and have fun, for we only live once. Cheers.